Congress's passage of Barack Obama's health care legislation on Sunday has prompted a new round of comparisons between the president and Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who fought a similar battle to get his New Deal programs enacted during the Great Depression. As you probably heard during the news, attorneys general for a dozen states have already threatened to challenge the constitutionality of the plan in court. And if that comes to pass, the White House may want to pick up a copy of a book called Supreme Power. In it, Jeff Shesol details how FDR tried unsuccessfully to pack the Supreme Court with liberal judges after the court's conservative majority shot down many of his social welfare programs. The book is published by Norton. I'm very pleased that it brings Jeff Shesol back to our show. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
The attorneys general of Virginia, Florida, and South Carolina are among those who suggested they may challenge the constitutionality of President Obama's health care plan. Don't they argue it violates the Constitution by requiring individuals to purchase health insurance?
That's right. They're arguing their case already on a couple of different grounds. One on grounds that the federal government generally has no business telling the states what to do. That's probably the weakest argument that they're making. And the other is on the grounds of the Commerce Clause, arguing that the Interstate Commerce Clause gives Congress no power to tell individuals that they have to buy health insurance.
I'm sure you don't know, but how likely is this to get to the Supreme Court pretty quickly?
I think it's unlikely to get to the court quickly. The individual mandates aren't supposed to kick in for a few years, and so this is going to take a while. If there's something that they can challenge in court sometime soon, they've made clear they're going to do that, and they're going to keep up the drumbeat.
Well, wouldn't they try to do it as soon as possible, because this court is rather conservative, as we saw with FDR in the early days when the court was extremely conservative. He couldn't get anything past the court, and it was only later when the court changed, members of the court changed, that the New Deal was allowed to go into effect.
Well, that's absolutely right, and you heard just a couple of weeks ago Clint Bolick, who's a conservative legal activist, saying in his words that he's itching to litigate the health care mandates, given, in his words, the current composition of the Supreme Court. It really all depends on who's sitting up on that dais in the black robes.
There is one big difference. The court during FDR's time was most of the members were rather old. In fact, they even had a nickname for that. But most of the conservative members here are rather young.
Well, that's right. The court that Roosevelt faced when he entered office in 1933 was the oldest Supreme Court in American history. In 1937, at the moment that Roosevelt proposed his court packing plan, the average age of a justice on that court was 71 years old. Currently, it's actually only around 68, 69 years, and the conservatives, as you pointed out, are more, in most cases, recent appointees, and so they're younger.
The conservatives in the 30s had been conservative long before FDR became president.
Well, they had been conservative longer than he'd been president, and they'd been around a lot longer. These were, in some cases, really 19th century men. One of those justices, Willis Van Devanter, remembered having seen as a young boy Lincoln's funeral procession. And when Charles Evans Hughes, the Chief Justice, was at Brown University, not only did he not have running water in his dorm or central electricity, but he had a separate closet just for coal, so he could feed his coal-burning stove in the room to keep warm. So these were men who came of age in a very different era than Roosevelt.
And Willis Van Devanter had planned to quit the court, but then decided he changed his mind?
Well, he changed his mind, and this was one of the great ironies of the court packing fight, is there were two justices, both Van Devanter and George Sutherland, who were old and somewhat ill. And as they saw Roosevelt about to enter office, they hoped that he wouldn't. They hoped that Hoover would win. But they were really eager either way to get off the court. And then Congress, in the middle of the Depression, decided to slash in half the pensions that were given to Supreme Court justices. This was the Depression, and these men had been in public service for a long time. They weren't, in most cases, sitting on a lot of money in their bank accounts. And so even though Congress restored the pensions, it made the justices feel very vulnerable. And Van Devanter says to his sister in a letter that he's not sure that they won't do the same thing again tomorrow. So they stick around, and Roosevelt's denied the opportunity to appoint two new justices.
And how old were they when they finally, did they die? Is that how they left the court?
No, they didn't. Actually, Van Devanter dealt a terrible blow to the court packing plan right in the middle of the battle in Congress over the plan when he announces that he's retiring. And so suddenly the rationale for packing the court is pulled right out from under Roosevelt. And so it is a carefully timed move, and he's worked it out in advance with a couple of the leaders of the opposition. And so on his way out, he deals Roosevelt a severe blow.
He's great.